So 1966, I'm Steve Roper, by the way, and we're recording this in 2008, 42 years after the climb. And this was going to be the third ascent of the Salathe wall on El Cap. And there'll be three of us, Allen Steck and Dick Long and myself. And we have to apologize, the quality is not the best because Dick Long had bought the camera the night before. He didn't tell us. And so we're learning to use the camera at this very moment as we're filming and reading the instruction booklet and not knowing about focus sometimes. But this is a historic film because I'm not sure any color film was ever taken on an El Cap climb up to this point. So it's a historic film. The route you see in the middle of the screen there is the heart, a giant 600-foot high thing. We're going up to it and up to the left and up the cracks. To the left of the heart, you can see cracks, big cracks going more or less all the way to the top. And here we have just a slow pan. In the middle of the screen now is the $50 on overhang with shadows. And at the top of the screen there is the Mammoth Terraces. And now we come in the middle of the screen now is the heart, and we rappel about 150 feet down there, and then enter crack systems now in the middle of the screen that go all the way to the top. Beautiful cracks, beautiful golden granite. In the middle of the screen now is El Cap spire casting a shadow. That's about our third bivouac. And up here, we have some overhangs near the top, and that's it. About 2,500 feet of climbing. We planned on 6 days, and it took 5.5 days. There's me in my shirt, and there's Allen Steck, who turned 40 years old not more than 2 weeks earlier. So an old man, a very old man.
I felt my age. This is Allen speaking now. And I have to say a little bit about the climb. It was named the Salathe Wall by Royal Robbins, and named after John Salathe, who was one of the pioneers of aid climbing in Yosemite Valley. John was a Swiss and had one of his major contributions to climbing was to the manufacturing of hard steel pitons, which enabled him to climb the Lost Arrow Chimney and Arrow Tip with Axe Nelson. And here we are on pitch 3, I guess. Here I am on pitch 3. And you can just see some of the hardware we're using on my waist. Dick Long made all this hardware. It's too bad Dick isn't here to tell his story, but he's an orthopedic surgeon in Carson City and couldn't make it. He, before he became involved in medicine, he manufactured pitons, even before Chenard came out with his selection of hard steel pitons. And so, since Dick was part of our crew, we decided to use all his gear.
So the first little overhang there, and all free now, of course, but in those days, all aid. We placed hundreds of direct aid pitons. This was in the days before nuts, so we had no nuts or cams of any sort. So solid pitoning, and we were not the best free climbers, that's for sure. And I can't see how this could be climb free myself, but young people now are fabulous climbers. But we nailed a lot of it. And sometimes we couldn't nail it, and you'll see Alan here fairly soon doing some wild free climbing off of shaky protection. It was very windy the first day, incredibly windy. As you can see, the slings are being blown out, and the pants, the pants flapping away. This is pitch 5, I believe.
Pitch 5, right. And I'm not known for aid climbing. Ropers always kind of made fun of me because I'm so slow. Anyway, I was probably pretty slow on this, plus every other pitch I led. But anyway, I made it. And right here, there's a transition between standing in slings and getting off on some free climbing moves. And I had just left the slings, and my highest piece is a little tiny rurp made by Chenard, actually, not by Long, and it held my fall. I just sort of slipped off. My shoes were called Spiders and were manufactured in Italy and were pretty stiff, and so they were not great for friction.
And they had lug soles, of all things.
Right, right. And so eventually I got across that little section. And on this climb, this 3,000-foot climb, there are 15 bolts placed by Robbins and Frost and Pratt when they made the first ascent in 1961. And all 15 are on this pitch, and I think the pitch above. Is that true? There are 2 pitches here. Right?
2 pitches.
Yeah.
Now there are many, many, many more bolts, hundreds of bolts probably, and variations. This hadn't been climbed. Robbins, as Allen said, Robbins and Frost and Pratt made the first ascent in 1961, but they had used some fixed ropes. So Robbins and Frost came back the next year and climbed it in one continuous push of about 5 days. That was 1962, so it had not been climbed for 4 years. Unbelievable. Now it's climbed almost daily, it seems like.
With more than 3 parties on the route at the same time. Steve, you made an attempt on this route with Chenard.
Yes.
In 1962, I guess. And did you get to Mammoth Terraces? Did you climb this pitch?
Yes. I climbed this. It was now rated. It was rated even then as one of the harder pitches, 510, friction climbing. And I guess I had led that back in '62 on our attempt. And we failed because of cowardice, basically, and it was very intimidating, extremely intimidating. And so on day 2, we decided to flee. So we rappelled down utterly blank wall, placing bolts from the bottom of the heart straight down. It took us half a day to get down and put in, I think, 3 rappel stations with 2 bolts each, 2 quarter-inch bolts each. And we fled.
Well, let's see. Dick was the only one of our group wearing a helmet, and he valued his cranium more, I guess, than we did because he was in medical school, or no, he was an intern at the time, I think, in Sacramento. And you'll notice also that when he's pulling on the ropes and everything, he's wearing gloves. Well, we didn't worry about our hands or our skulls too much, because Roper has a sailor's hat and I had an Austrian hat. Anyway, here's Dick leading. He's a marvelous climber.
Oh, very, very good climber.
And very solid, and I've always, on many climbs I've been with him, I sort of, when the going gets too tough, it's always Dick who takes over my leads. I don't mind that, actually, too much.
Well, he was the best free climber among us, easily. And at one point, even before this climb, he said, I think I could be, if I wasn't going to be a doctor, I think I could be as good as Robbins if I had the time.
There's the orange knife blades that you were talking about, Steve. Okay, here's Dick trying to free up the
there's Roper.
The $50.
With his stupid little sailor hat to keep the sun off. Awkward, very awkward nailing. It looks low angle here, but actually it feels a little steeper when you're there. Looks like it looks like third class almost there, but we were intimidated. This was the first non-Robbins. Robbins was by far the finest climber, maybe in the world, at this time, and so of course this was the first non-Robbins ascent, and of course we were intimidated. We sort of knew we could do it, and one thing we did is take what I'm very proud of is we took no bolt kit. We decided if they had done it, we couldn't do it without placing bolts. We wouldn't do it. This is probably a stupid idea, because how could we have retreated?
Good point. Yeah, that would have been a problem, all right. And here we're coming into the end of the first day, Mammoth Terraces, and the beauty of the rock that afternoon was stupendous. It was just marvelous light coming in, and all facets of granite were kind of warm colored. Normally they'd be colder than hell, but we're, yeah, as you know from the introduction, it's May 1966, and what we don't know right now is that a cloud, kind of a minor storm is coming through. No precipitation, but clouds are beginning to form. That'll be on the next day.
So day 2 begins cold, cold. We have big ledges, huge ledges to sleep on. And this is a strange way to, looks like we're retreating. We're terrified and going to give it up. But no, the route actually has a 150-foot rappel down to a big, beautiful ledge at the base of the heart. And that's how we start off day 2. Because Royal, when he invented this route, had of course scoped it out from the ground and had thought, how do we get up here without having big blank sections? And so he pieced together this route that included that rappel to get over to another crack system. So my turn. First day, Allen and Dick were climbing, because I had done the first thing, so I let them do that. And we're going to alternate every day. Somebody had to haul, and 2 people would do the leading.
How many duffels did we have? Do you remember? 2, I guess?
Probably 2, maybe 50 pounds, 50 pounds
in
each.
this entire film, you don't see that. You don't see what do they call them, the pigs?
The pigs,
You
yeah.
don't see the pigs too often because
Well, they're not very sexy, really.
They're not very photogenic, I guess.
So a very complex pitch here, with a little lie backing and a little pendulum. Notice my hammer there, this enormous carpenter's hammer with one claw hacksawed off to make extraction easier. A big, heavy hammer, worthy of Thor himself. Sometimes you'll see me, I think, later on, putting in a piton with about 5 massive blows and hitting it once to test it down and going up on it. So a little baby pendulum here, or a tension traverse, really, to get over to another crack system. Robbins had figured out this climb beautifully, and there were cracks all the way up from the 5th pitch onward. There were usable cracks for our hardware and our hands and feet. So this is about 10 in the morning of day 2.
This was rather a complicated pitch, I guess. There was it goes in all different directions, and I've kind of forgotten how you get up to the top of this and set up the anchor for the pendulum, the famous pendulum on Hollow Flake Crack.
Yes. This pitch, I believe, ends on a thing called lung ledge, part of the heart metaphor. So this pitch ends on a nice ledge, and that's where we belayed for the famous pendulum into the Hollow Flake crack, which you'll see in a minute here. I'm amazed at my flexibility. I can put my foot up at waist level and stand up on it, which I could not hardly do now. So now we're on lung ledge. I go up about 20 or 30 feet, a piton or 2. I'm very nervous. I have a trailing haul rope. And I'm saying, okay, lower me carefully, man, as long as belaying. I am terrified. I keep thinking that rope looks awfully thin.
And I'm standing up there just anchored to that solitary pendulum piton, filming, just...
If that thing had popped, we
all would have gone.
So down I go, maybe 40 feet, 50 feet. I'm very nervous.
Well, as in all pendulums, the pendulum person always tries a little bit too soon. And you can see that you're going to have a failure there and another attempt. He's still not low enough.
Each time you get lowered maybe 2 or 3 feet. I should have gotten it that time, perhaps. Third time is the charm.
And Long is telling me, does he need more rope? And so he gives Roper another couple of feet of rope.
Oh.
And he slides down the crack and manages to hang in there.
I get in there and I just put my head in my hands and say, oh God, thank God that's over with. And now I can do some real climbing. This was thought to be a jam crack. Everybody, well, the 2 other parties had jammed it. And I found lie backing, a very sharp edge, beautiful footholds on the outside, and it looked like maybe 5.6 or 5.7 instead of the reported.
People I've talked to about this pitch say that there's no way they'd ever lay back it like that.
It was trivial.
Pays to be young and 25. God, I mean...
Yes, I was 25. Steck, as I say, had just turned 40. Long was about 30, early 30s, I guess.
And I remember Chenard had walked along the base of the route as we were on going to Mammoth Terraces, and he hollers up and he says, Roper, what are you doing up there with those 2 old men?
Yeah, right.
Remember that?
Yes. We showed him.
Right.
So it looks very low angle here, but like I say, when you're there, it feels like it's about 80 degrees. It's probably only 70. You see my shirt there. I'd washed it a couple days earlier and put it too close to a dryer, a radiator. Smelled smoke, so that accounts for the scorching.
You know, I've always thought that you had no protection in on that. And
I finally got a bong.
You do. I think you've got something in there
I finally
now.
put a bong in sideways, way up there, just for morale.
That's a long pitch.
Yeah. So this is getting late in the afternoon of day 2. Clouds are starting to come in. Wind has dropped a bit, but still, look at my hair. It's going. So there's our rack, huge rack. 15 pounds of iron. There's the first good picture of Long. We've come to Hollow Flake Ledge, which is a nasty little ledge. It's sort of big, but it's covered with boulders. Yeah. So now we're in the late afternoon. We're going to go up a couple of pitches and fix them. Meaning we're going to leave the ropes hanging just to get an earlier start.
And they're also leaving me to do the ear on the following morning.
By the mid-40s, Californians had gotten away from shoulder belays, but we used hip belays, the rope simply around the waist, very casual, as you see in this picture. What was I thinking? I'm looking at clouds or airplanes or something, just playing with myself. God knows what I was doing, but not paying much attention. Because, of course, he falls here, why, we're all dead, so what does it matter? But once he gets, I think what we learned is once he gets the first piton in, then you start belaying. There's no point in belaying here because he's going to hit the ledge, drag us all to our deaths anyway. So as soon as he puts a piton in, then I pay more attention, I hope. I hope I did. I'm sure I did. I probably stood up and actually paid attention. I cannot remember now, but the adage that the leader must not fall, what was ingrained into us from birth, it seems like, back in the 40s, the leader must not fall. And when we had little tiny falls on this climb, but you simply did not risk a big fall. Here I am paying a lot of attention, I see.
And your belaying is exquisite. Yeah, look at that.
And there's a knot in the rope for some crazy reason. Yes, I guess we...
That's the end of the rope.
Yeah, I said, Long, it's time to belay. We'll tie another rope on for a few feet. We were maybe too casual, I don't know. I guess we're still alive now in our dotage here. Still alive, so I guess we did certain things right, or just lucked out, perhaps. Okay, now I'm going to follow Steck is going to... I guess it was still my day of climbing, day 2.
I've been hauling that day, right.
So there are some of the big bongs that Long had made, up to about 4 inches. Now I'm following. Why I have a pack on, I don't know, because we're going to be coming back down to this ledge. But nice easy chimney. Long way up there in the red. So we're going to set up 2 ropes, maybe 300 feet of rope up to the bottom of the ear. So we're Long and there I go on the next pitch. So we're going to set up these 2 ropes and rappel back to the hollow flake ledge for the second night, second bivouac. Here now we see on the right-hand crack of those 2 huge cracks, that's where we're going tomorrow. The ear at the very bottom of the screen in the shadow. A very foreshortened right-hand crack. This is where the wall gets very steep, right about here, right at the ear. It gets essentially dead vertical for the next 1,500 feet. So there is Long doing something.
Well, the ear is a formation. Well, here we're looking at the traffic along the road down there. A lot of people down there, probably with telescopes, watching us. But the ear is a big plate of granite that is. You have a Bombay chimney you have to negotiate, which means as you're stemming out through this chimney, you're looking down through your feet. Now there we are in the center of the ear formation, and you're looking down through your feet, down thousands of feet, couple of thousand feet. And it's kind of terrifying to do that. And so here's Long just sitting there. It's the afternoon. We wasted the whole lot of time, just sitting here in the sun. And you're talking about the ear, because Steck gets the ear tomorrow.
Yep.
Well,
thank God Steck got it. Yeah, it was very intense.
There's nobody, thinking about this bivouac. This is bivouac at the Hollow Flake Crack, top of Hollow Flake Crack. And this is how bivouacs were in those days, You just sort of lay down on the rock and go to sleep. And even Long had his helmet on. There's what are those? Oh, water bottles, yeah. Well, anyway, I'm waking up. This is, again, all the boulders that Steve was talking about. And a friend of ours was up here on this ledge some years later, and an earthquake happened, and all these boulders went clattering down into the void below. So, as I understand it, these don't exist anymore on
also,
this ledge.
one could wonder why these boulders are here in the first place.
Good point, yeah.
Yes. You don't want to
They
be
came
there.
from somewhere. We don't want to know
No.
exactly anything about that.
So this is the morning of day 3, Hollow Flake Ledge. And poor Steck, he looks a little nervous for a good reason.
Well, anyway, the ear has already been climbed, and this is no pictures were taken of it because, for one thing, it seemed there was too little light, and also everyone was kind of tense. And when I went out on this damn thing and looking through my legs down in the valley below, stemming, I had what we call sewing machine legs. In other words, my legs weren't trained enough to handle the strain put on them, and they started to shake. So I would hold on with one leg while the other one shook out and then change, and I was pretty gripped on that. And I know that some people, one person, a German, that once he fell out of the ear climb and broke his hip as he crashed into the wall on the opposite side.
So now, very, very steep. It's, I'd say, 85, 90 degrees. All artificial climbing, aid climbing, and slow. A piton every 4 feet. This could be done, well, it's done free now, but if we'd had nuts and camming devices, we could have led this in 1/3 the time. It's a perfect crack. It's A1, the easiest form of aid climbing. So as we mentioned, somebody was hauling each day. One person hauled, and you don't see the giant duffel bags. Okay, my turn to lead a nasty crack. Look at my hammer. This is that carpenter's hammer I mentioned earlier. Gigantic carpenter's hammer with one tine sawed off. Very heavy.
Well, no wonder you can get your pins in so much firmer than I can with my little tiny hammer.
And they're difficult to get out, however, because
True enough.
my 5 massive blows drove those things right to the hilt. Take 10 minutes to get them out sometimes. So above, you'll see the 3-tiered roof that we're going to negotiate in a day or two, still 1,000 feet above us. A magnificent route. This is what was called the finest rock climb in the world by Robbins, and we had to agree when we finished. The variety of jam cracks, pendulums, face climbing,
And such weird places like this. So this is the pitch that goes up behind the El Cap spire. And you can see that El Cap spire is detached from the wall and probably will fall down at some future point in time, but hopefully not today or tomorrow. Anyway, my lead, and it's afternoon, I suppose, and although there's more light coming through here than as I remember, but anyway, it's kind of tricky because the wall behind my back is not flat. It's kind of angled, which makes chimneying a little bit tricky. I got some pitons in. You'll see me hammering one here pretty soon, and
Beautiful lighting, though. It was about 5 in the afternoon, and we knew we had it made. There was a huge bivouac ledge coming up about 50 feet above Allen. The sunlight streaming through, illuminating the rope. Looks like the rope is on fire. Just one of the, and Long and I were on this beautiful ledge down below, so everybody was very happy at this moment. Maybe not Allen at this very moment.
right, I was kind of struggling, as I remember. But God, when I talked to people like Pratt or Rob or Rowell, they'd say, "Oh, that pitch, it's only 5.6 for God's sake," and you're complaining about it.
So here we are on top of El Cap Spire, a fabulous ledge, about 15 by 15, absolutely flat. So it's the morning of day 3, I guess.
And we're about, 1,500 feet up, I guess.
Yep. So beautiful cracks, now climbed at 511 level, but there the 3-tiered roof looming above us. So we just nailed everything. It's aid climbing, artificial climbing, standing in slings. I don't know why this looks like about 5.7 right at that moment, but once you're in slings, here, looking down at Allen on the most fabulous bivouac ledge maybe in Yosemite. It's just an unbelievable, absolutely flat. Makes me ill to watch Allen walking around unroped, standing that close to the edge, probably pissing probably at that moment. A beautiful bivouac ledge. Allen's turn, up the next pitch. He has a CMI hammer, which is a modern hammer made for rock climbing from a guy in Colorado, but a little bit light for the job, perhaps, compared to mine.
As you said, I think earlier, Steve, that Robbins had spent a lot of time looking at this route through a telescope and had planned it out pretty much in advance, just where the route was going to go, and it worked out that way. And how you can figure out just where these pictures are going to go is really interesting. It'll show. We'll see in a moment where Steve does a pendulum pitch, which was done on the first ascent, which would never happened on the first ascent and also on the ascent that we did. But subsequently, no one ever went that way. They managed to find another way to bypass that pendulum. What have we got here? We've got Roper following, I think. Cleaning the pitch.
There's El Cap Spire. The big flat looks like a weird projection there, but actually, as Alan said, it's completely detached from the cliff.
Now look how convoluted the face is up in here. The rock structure is just fabulous. Here begins Roper's fabulous lead to do this incredible pendulum. It's the most incredible pendulum I've ever known about,
You notice
let alone done.
And you'll notice that I'm wearing my down jacket. Is very cold. I think it's overcast. It's windy. It must be in the 40s. I wore the down jacket for something like 3 days without ever taking it off. Very cold.
This would be the beginning of day 4, right?
I think so, yes.
And we had camped at a place called Camp 4. Not a very good bivouac spot for 3 people.
Camp 5, actually, but
Camp 5?
not a good place. Okay, here I am getting lowered off of very shaky pitons, very shaky. I was terrified, of course.
Well, to the uninitiated, you might wonder, you might think about, when Long comes up, I'm hauling this day. Long is following. Okay, he gets up to where Roper has done his pendulum, and that's the only piton left on the entire pitch. Right?
And I'm around the corner. I'm around the corner, out of sight. It was a frightening day.
Incredible. Maybe he left maybe he put an extra one in. Who knows? But
now Alan has come from the ledges at the far left of the screen. Alan has now been there for about 10 hours. This is now in the afternoon. We've been taking so long, and here we haven't seen him since dawn, and this is about 2 in the afternoon. And he comes up, very glad to see us. We're very glad to see him because he has all the gear and the food, of course.
And I'll be thinking about what I have to do in about a short time is step off of camp. I call it Camp 4. Step off of Camp 4 and swing about 50 feet to the left to get to where I Jumar up to
up the fall line.
What Robbins had called sous le toit ledge, which means under the roof ledge.
We're now getting close, as you'll see in a minute, close to that 3-tiered roof that I've mentioned. Now looking down, we're now there is the Jumar.
Now there's the Jumar we've been wondering about for a long time, about how to describe the camming devices we use to climb up the rope when we're hauling loads. And it was designed and built in Switzerland, and the fellow who designed it was named Jumar.
Our hauling technique was rather crude. Either we'd have the duffel bags hanging below us 5 or 6 feet, right below our feet, and we put a huge strain on our waist loop, or somebody would haul it from above, hand over hand. There were specialized techniques developed later by Robbins of using, too hard to describe here.
Using a
pulley system.
Basically. Mechanical advantage.
So we are now approaching the 3-tiered roof, or mini multi-tiered
Now
roof.
look above the roof, you'll see a crack going up, and that is where we spend our last bivouac, our last night. It's the most incredible bivouac ever done in Yosemite.
The crack is now
and you
visible.
see the crack there in the center of the
center
image is where we are going to hang like bats this evening.
So now I attack the 3 or multi-tiered roof, which had amazingly good cracks in it. It does not look very steep here, but the wall itself is vertical. Of course, the roofs are horizontal. So this is not a very fair look at it. It looks like I'm on a slab there, but it's very steep. Well, you can see the hammer is hanging down the fall line. The hammer is not touching the rock. This is very steep, but very good cracks. Aid climbing, of course. Nobody goes this way anymore, I think, or occasionally they do. Very windy, still very cold. Luckily, a storm threat has passed. We're okay there, but and now I think we know that we're going to make it. Somehow we start getting calm about here, even though it's terribly steep and exposed. We know we have to go up. We can't go down. This, of course, is in the days before any rescue apparatus was in place. There was no rescue squad down in the valley. Who could have come to us? Well, now we're close to the top. Somebody could have rappelled to save us. But we never thought about rescue or retreat or anything. We just climbed. And it's amazing to me how calm we were throughout. There's no talk of retreat, no arguments. I can't say we had just jolly good fun the whole way. We didn't have jolly good fun. It was sort of like a job. It was work.
It seems to me, Steve, that maybe you planned the bivouac to be where it was. Is that true?
I don't think so.
To be
no,
so
no.
exciting? How did we manage to do that? Because
Well, we knew
Robin's never bivouacked there.
we knew we couldn't get higher up, and we knew that Salathe Ledge was a horrible little place for only one person, not three of us. So why not just go on until darkness comes and just stop wherever we are?
Well, it's only
And
2
hang.
pitches to that big ledge. What's it called?
Long
ledge.
Not named after
Okay.
Dick Long, but Long Ledge because it is about a 30-foot ledge. You'll see it later. We couldn't make that, and there's no point in staying at Salathe Ledge. So we just said, let's go until darkness stops us. Stop, bivouac. Now you can see the steepness here. Everything, all the slings and the hammer they're all just out there floating out in space. Weird technique here, using my right foot for a lever. A very poor crack above, and the exposure here is astronomical. It's just, if something was dropped right here, it would go about 600 feet, 500, 600 feet before touching the wall. It's the most exposed place I think any of us have ever been. You'll sort of see now if we pan downward, I forget. Very frightening. That rope breaks, Steck is gone.
I'm gone, yeah, right. And there you can see the pig, the haul bag down there at the bottom. That'll be hauled up later. I'm not going to carry it up.
It's
Thank
very
God
light
for
now.
that.
Very light now, maybe only 25 or 30 pounds. So this is the Jumar up the fixed rope that I have fixed. You go up 2 feet at a time. Quite easy, except it can be strenuous. That rope looks so thin, doesn't it?
For some strange reason, I never thought about how fragile that rope might be, in the entire climb.
I thought about it every day.
We just assumed that it was going to be perfectly solid, We didn't worry about it.
Maybe you did, but I worried about it.
Did you?
Every
Okay.
hour of every day. That thing is, a half-inch rope that can get cut over a sharp edge.
That's true, yeah. That's true.
It's called a lifeline for a good reason. I mean,
As
it
John
has to-
Harlan II knows
Yes.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So this is late in the afternoon of, I believe, day 4. I guess it's hard to remember because the time passed either sometimes very slowly, sometimes very quickly. And time is almost meaningless on a big wall, it seems like. So this is the morning of our last day, day 5, or day 6.
And I remember that we had gotten up kind of creaky, in the morning, in the cold and everything with our down jackets, and Long was about 40 feet above. And I decided that I wanted this pitch, So I started climbing up, and I clawed my way past Long, who was quite surprised because he thought he was going to get the pitch. Anyway, I wanted the head wall for some reason, and I guess it went okay. Was the head wall 2 pitches, Steve? Do you remember?
Yes, 2 pitches.
It's 2.
And earlier, before we even started the climb, we had more or less drawn straws. We each wanted a classic pitch. Long wanted the summit pitch, a very famous pitch that Pratt had led on the first ascent, a crack. I wanted the hollow flake pendulum for some weird reason. And Steck wanted, I don't think he wanted the ear, but he wanted to pitch on the headwall. So that explains why he shot past Long. Now the rope hanging out there shows the angle. This is about 100 degrees for maybe 200 feet. Averages 95 degrees, maybe 100. The rope looks like it's going out to Middle Cathedral Rock.
Who's leading
behind
this
us.
day? I am, and who else? Who's hauling?
I must be hauling. We are now on Long Ledge, named not after Dick, but because it is long. It's about 30 or 40 feet long. Very scary because I had to put in a piton in. So I wasn't hauling this day. I guess we were alternating a bit here. I had to put a piton in. I'm now 30 feet away from the belay. I put in a piton, and it's not a good crack at all. And I have to stand up on it. And this is not fun because it pops. I am badly hurt, very badly hurt. Not a good place to fall. So very gingerly do I test it. Very gingerly climb up. Very thankful to get the next piton in, safeguard myself. But now we're actually happy. Now we're joking and laughing because we know we're only 3 or 4 pitches from the top, and it's only something like 10 in the morning. And the exposure is just incredible. Right below Steck's feet. You drop something there, it goes maybe 800 feet, 700 feet.
And Long's wife, Betty, is camped right down there in the meadow. You can see sort of a lot of open spaces down there. So we take some pictures. Now this is not a Chenard piton, I don't think, that we're hammering in there.
You were correct, yeah.
That I'm hammering in.
Look at Steck's hands, by the way. Not exactly.
This tells you what happens to your hands on a long 5-day climb, 4.5-day climb.
Not exactly
Or
pristine
5.5-day climb.
We didn't have quick draws, of course, in those days. Just 2 carabiners in a piton, which meant we had to take about 70, as I recall, 70 carabiners on the thing. The loads were just amazing. The water, of course, we haven't talked about the water. Huge amount of water. Here now, we hear a noise. We hear a noise, and through the valley, thousands of feet below us, 2 Navy jets are going through. We couldn't focus the camera properly at the time. There they are, totally illegally, and certainly not done anymore.
Well, there's a trick to taking a telephoto, we know, with these cameras, and we somehow did it okay sometimes, but other times we blew it. I remember that the night before we're spending down at the base of El Cap, we're by headlamp, we're reading the instruction manual, for God's sake. I mean, we didn't have much time to go over the intricacies of filming. Here comes Long hauling his bag for the final. Long gets this final pitch that Pratt did so magnificently. Now Long is starting to get ready for this pitch, and what he doesn't realize, of course, is that he's going to get up there a little ways, and he'll have to go right into a chimney. And the chimney is so narrow that his head gets stuck. And he has to leave his helmet behind. But anyway, his helmet is...
We had visions of him hanging from his, jammed up
Chin
there,
strap, huh?
hanging from his chin strap, dead, up there suffocating. But luckily he took the helmet off before and left it somewhere on a piton. And now we're like 30 feet from the top. The top of El Cap is not flat, but it's sloping, walkable, hikeable, and you finish this pitch on hard climbing, and you're on more or less level ground.
I must say, of course, that this entire climb was Roper's idea. None of us, neither Dick nor I, ever thought that we would climb the Salathe wall. But Steve had it in his mind to do this, and you had just come back from
Vietnam. I was in the Army for 2 years, Georgia and Vietnam, and I was still feeling my oats. And 1966 would be my banner year. I got into very good shape. Unlike these guys, they had jobs. I was sitting there in the valley for the whole month of May.
And of course, you'd been on the wall already. You knew.
Yes, I knew the lower part.
About it.
I knew the lower part. I sort of memorized the upper part thanks to Royal's descriptions. So Allen is now bringing up the helmet of Long. We're on the top now, the sloping top, coiling our ropes in a very old-fashioned way. I think we had 3 ropes maybe, a hauling line and 2 major ropes, coiling in the old Sierra Club way. Our gear.
Well, in the
laid
center
out.
of the image, pretty soon you'll see a what our waist harnesses are. The harnesses that I had made I was working for Trailwise at the time, and we made these harnesses, but we didn't have leg loops for them for some stupid reason.
So they were just waist loops, basically.
Anyway, they were just waist loops, like great Swami belts, but more.
Because it was so
usable.
cold, we had excess water. We had taken about 1.5 quarts per man per day, but it was so cold that we simply didn't sweat very much, didn't need the water. And we shake hands and
And remember the
done.
hike back to the Yosemite Falls Trail?
Yes.
We lay down to rest under some trees, and
Yes.
we were all remarking how we were hallucinating.
Yes. I remember looking up at trees, looking up at pines and seeing the pine needles.
The branches
The pine needles
undulating, huh?
interleaving and undulating, and it was like a drug trip that I later experienced. I had no
Well,
drugs at
how'd
that
it go?
It's good.
time. Yeah.